All right, we will go ahead and get started at one of my satellite offices. I know it's kind of hard to see. Okay, so we do these workshops every Wednesday, webinars every Wednesday, and we call them our weekly wisdom webinars. It's a lot of W's, and really like doing it. It's just a chance to answer questions that are either submitted ahead of time or live questions that are asked right live while I'm presenting. So if you do have a question or something's unclear, feel free to put it in the Q&A. And it looks like we have 2 questions submitted. So if we don't get more, it might be a shorter webinar today. But I always like to start with a positive focus, something positive that happened. And I think we can all agree in Michigan, the weather's been just wonderful, especially since I have soccer games this week, coaching my son's soccer game tonight, and then he has a soccer game tomorrow night as well. So thankful for the beautiful weather. It's about time. All right, so with that, we'll go ahead and get started. First question was just submitted, so I appreciate it. Chris, will you put on your financial advisor hat and tell us your strategy for this bear market? Is there a different approach to handling a Roth account to a brokerage account for an IRA? Yeah, so I'm sure you've seen the news, but the markets haven't been faring very well recently. And there's a variety of reasons for that. First of all, issues with the pandemic. We're not fully out of all of that, whether it's supply chain issues, like I have a lot of business clients and manufacturing clients, and just supply chain still screwed up. Workers, like unemployment and not having enough workers has been an issue as well. And then the Feds with the interest rates, and then inflation, and then sprinkling on the Russia, Ukraine, and what's going to happen next. There's just a lot of uncertainty right now. And I think that's affected in what the markets are doing right now. So question is, what would be the strategy for the bear market? And I would say, taking one step back, first, it starts with having a plan. And I always tell my clients that we can't control the markets. No one can, but we can have a plan, and we can focus on the things that we can control. And so a lot of times when I'm working with clients, when we're talking about putting together a plan, we like to have these different buckets of money. So a now bucket of money is, think of this as money we might need for the next year. Our soon bucket of money is kind of the next bucket of cash we may need. And this might be years 1 through 10. Years 1 through 10. And then the later bucket of money might be, say, 10 years out. And the years can vary depending on where the client's at. But the idea is that if we have a good plan, like the now bucket, this should really be your checking savings. So what should be in here? Your emergency fund. What else should be in here? Any big expenses you have for the year, like if you're taking a big trip, you need to fix up the house, or if you're in retirement, whatever your income gap is. So the amount of income you need each month, like if your, say, Social Security and pension is $3,000, but your expenses are $5,000, that would be an income gap of about $2,000. So what this does is buys a time horizon. Because again, that's what we can control, is just understanding what is the purposes of the money. Our soon bucket of money should probably be invested more conservatively and more geared towards income, especially in retirement. And then the later bucket of money, this is where we have a longer time horizon. This is where we have more growth. This is where we're planning for, like, maybe legacy or long-term care. So for the clients where we're managing the money and we're touching base, really none of my clients have varied or differed from the plan, because we understand that, okay, this first bucket of money, this buys us a time horizon, so that we're not super stressed of wondering where our next paycheck is coming from when we're in retirement. This is very different than just, okay, the 4% rule of I just take 4%, whether, and that's where if the markets are down and now you're pulling money from for income from down accounts, that's where we get into trouble in sequence of return risk. And with idea that, okay, and then each year we replenish that now bucket by moving this money that's more conservative, more geared towards income, to that checking and savings. And so, yeah, this is typically where we might see more volatility, but we have this time horizon where we're not forced to pull the money out. So so taking a step back of looking at it in terms of a bear market, understand the markets, they've went up the last 13 years, basically. We've been on a 13-year bull run. And if you remember 2008, 2002, these things don't always last. So first, I guess, kind of going back in time, if we could, is just have a plan to know that, yeah, at some point the markets are going to drop. But if we position our assets correctly, it's not going to affect your retirement. It's not going to have a dramatic effect. Now, that said, so that just goes to having kind of a plan, but that's not really getting at the heart of the question is, okay, what are the opportunities right now? And that's really what I like to focus on, because we can't control the market, we can't control events, we can only control our reactions to these events. So yeah, seeing the market down 16%, it's not a good thing by any means. No one likes to see the red, but what are the opportunities? What are the things that maybe we should be considering? And one of those things, and I think you're kind of touching upon this, is now might be the time, especially if you have IRAs or pre-tax accounts. Like, let's say we have XYZ mutual funds inside of your IRA, okay? And let's say it just drops 15%, okay? A simple strategy might be to, because again, most people think taxes are going up in the future. Think of it like a slinky, right? Those old slinkies. We stretch it out, it's in the IRA. Okay, now the market drops and now it's shrunk. Well, now might be an opportune time to do something like a Roth conversion. Okay. Don't like to get it into timing the market too much, but this is something that we just did with one of our clients, Roth conversion, where now if we say, okay, now this money is inside of a Roth that can grow tax-free, and we still have that same XYZ mutual fund, or I would say even maybe invest more aggressively, as things rebound, which they always do, now we can get that rebound inside of the tax-free bucket. Similarly, if you had an asset protection trust, like a castle trust, okay? And I was meeting with a client right before the webinar, has about 1.1 million pre-tax, near retirement age, and concerned about long-term care costs. Well, now with this dip, gives us more room. Again, if it's like assuming XYZ mutual fund drops 15% now, well, let's move XYZ mutual fund into the trust, pay the tax, and now we can get the growth inside of this asset protection trust. So that's probably the biggest thing where we're looking at what can we control. So taxes are one of those things that we can get some control and make some decisions. In terms of what else to do in the bear market, I would, so that would be kind of strategy number one to think about. Number two would be consider the amount of risk you're really willing to take on. Now might be a time to reassess, and I'm not saying that you should go to cash or anything like that, but when I talk to clients a lot of times, they say, oh, I'm aggressive. It's easy to be aggressive when we've been on a 13-year bull run, but now we see, okay, what can happen? The markets can drop. So maybe now you're not really as aggressive as you thought you were. And I'm not saying you should move to cash or anything, or I'm not even suggesting you should move more conservative. But I would just reanalyze how much risk you're really willing to take on. And so this is where sometimes we're repositioning assets still inside of like an IRA or forward or IRA or a brokerage account, repositioning those assets so that we can have our principal protected, but still maybe get a 20% rate of return. So there's things that offer safety and growth. So maybe we want to think about moving more money to safety, growth versus the volatility of the market, where still, yeah, we can collect the upside of the market, but maybe we want to limit our downside exposure moving forward and still have a good rate of return there. And then, so that would be a second thing to think about. And then the third thing to think about, and I had it in my head that I was going to say, and I kind of forgot. So we talked about IRAs. I guess I kind of combined it. So analyze your risk. And then the third thing is maybe thinking about just repositioning your assets, okay, into maybe safety or growth. Oh, here we go. Fourth thing And I'll tell you what, it's hard. And again, most people are expecting a lot of volatility for the rest of the year. So it might be hard to stomach this, but maybe now's a time, because everything is low, is to buy. Maybe we get more aggressive in the market. So, okay, we had a dip. We know there's going to be volatility, but let's ramp up the risk now, assuming you're willing to deal with the ups and downs, with the idea that, hey, now's the time to buy because everything just dipped. So those would be just off the top of my head. And again, this question was just submitted, so I don't have like PowerPoint slides or anything, and I know my handwriting is kind of messy. But those are just 4 things that I would think about. Let me just make sure. Is there a different approach to handling a Roth account to a brokerage account for an IRA? Just getting to that piece. I typically, again, looking at time horizons, I would want the Roth more aggressively invested versus the IRA or the brokerage account typically would be more conservative. And the reason for that is just looking at time horizons. A lot of clients are pulling money out of the IRAs because taxes are going up, or because they're forced to with required minimum distributions. So you're going to have to sell sooner on the IRA. And then with the Roth, that's growing tax-free. That's typically your later bucket of money. So that's where we would take maybe a more aggressive approach with the Roths. So hopefully that answered your question, give you some things to think about. But yeah, Roth conversions, moving money out of the IRA, thinking of it kind of like a slinky where it just shrank. Well, now let's move it out and move it and have that growth somewhere else, whether it's asset protected in a trust or maybe a Roth, something like that. That would be something to consider. Second, consider the amount of risk you're really willing to take on. Maybe it's time to reevaluate that. Third, maybe you could reposition some of the assets from the volatility of the market to something that offers safety plus growth. And then fourth, maybe now's the time to lean in and get a more aggressive, or if you have money sitting on the sideline in cash, maybe now's the time, depending on your situation, to move it into the market and collect, hopefully, some of the upside. But again, I think for the rest of the year, we're going to see continued volatility. So if you're risk averse, that might not be the strategy to do. All right, so hopefully that was a good one. Thank you. All right, answer that question. Here's another question. Is there a way to know if a person has had a document executed to take control of a trust and power of attorney with a different lawyer? So question here is, someone did an estate plan, okay, and they did it with lawyer 1. And then the question is, how do you know if someone basically did a new document? Did a new estate plan. All right, is there a way to know if another person has had a document executed, take control of a trust and power of attorney with a different lawyer? Yeah, so let's say someone did a estate plan with lawyer 1, and then they amended it or update it with lawyer 2. Yeah, so ironically, this just came up today. I had one of our clients hypothetical clients passed away. She had appointed an attorney as a trustee. We had done our old documents, but now she trusted this family member who is an attorney to do an amendment. So yeah, I didn't know until he told me. So yeah, unfortunately, there's no way to know if someone did a new estate plan. There's not, especially if you're named as like a successor trustee or a power of attorney. There's no notice that's required of you, required to give to you. And unfortunately, I do see this sometimes with families where maybe mom and dad starting to have some capacity issues, and one of the kids wants one thing to happen, so they take them to one attorney, and then the other kid wants something else to happen, so they take them to another attorney, and it ends up being this game of ping pong, which is unfortunate. So, and there's no, like, these things aren't like recorded at the county, and there's no require of notice to update like successor trustees and agents. So it can be a little bit difficult. So the answer to the question is no, there's really no way to know that unless like you're the beneficiary. Yes, that's what happened. One kid and another. Which one is legit? Yeah, so the comment is that basically we're ping-ponging mom and dad back between lawyers. So the question is, which one is legit? Which one is legal? It's the last one. So as long as they have capacity, whatever the last document they signed is legit, is legal, is the one that has to be filed. Really, the only way to stop this is, first of all, try to have mom and dad stop doing it. But again, if there's capacity issues, then they're just going to go along with sometimes whoever's taking care of them or whoever they're with. I've seen that many times. Really, the only way to stop it from the ping-ponging is to get a guardianship. And that's one of the few examples or reasons why I would recommend someone get a guardianship, where now you get the courts involved. And guardianship, you're petitioning the court to say, A, mom or dad doesn't, or whoever it is, doesn't have capacity. And then B, because they don't have capacity, they should appoint you or who should they appoint as that guardian. But basically, like, you're suing whoever you're going over that guardianship, and you're taking them to court. And so I tend to call that the nuclear option. I don't like to rely on it. But if you have someone who's taking mom to one lawyer and then someone else is taking mom to the other lawyer, and we're getting conflicting documents, then sometimes it's time to get the courts involved, which is unfortunate. But I've seen it happen. And yeah, I've seen it with a loved one that has diminished capacity, and different people think different things should be happening, and so they just take mom, and then next month when mom's staying with them at their house, they take them to another attorney. So really the only way to avoid that is through the guardianships. All right, let me see. All right, if you have any other questions, please put it into the Q&A. There we go. Let's see what just came in. Thank you. You are welcome. All right. Make it a great week. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, wait, here's one more. Nope.